Hello, and welcome to The Quiet Distance. I'm joined by my geography teacher, Mrs. Want. We're here to talk about her travels around Southeast Asia. Hello, Mrs. Want.
Hello there, you alright?
Yeah, I'm alright. So why did this trip feel a trip of a lifetime to you?
I mean, first of all, just for the length of time we went, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I think it was quite a big decision to kind of do this trip because it was something I had to go and ask work for some time off. It was 3 months traveling. We were kind of felt like we were jumping into the unknown a little bit, and I think that kind of trip of a lifetime, going somewhere, going to a continent that we'd never really been to before, was just something that was a really, really exciting opportunity for me, and that was what made it a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Just the opportunity to travel around the world is just, honestly, it's a dream come true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those, to go to those 6 countries and actually not just go there on like a one-off holiday when you're there for like a week and you are in like one place, actually to be, in some of the countries I went to. So in Thailand, I was in Thailand for a month where I was traveling around kind of the country, seeing very different parts of the country, looking at, in Thailand, going to Bangkok and seeing like their really large urban area, but then going to the south of Thailand and, experiencing all the islands and so on, what a different way of living that was. I think actually, it kind of gave you a real experience when you're traveling is very different to being on holiday because you actually get to see actually the culture and immerse yourself within the culture of the people and that country.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. But before traveling to Southeast Asia, what expectations did you have about it?
I didn't really have any expectations, really. But one thing I did just want to do was just to really kind of let go and just to immerse myself into the culture and getting to know really and seeing the real country and understanding the culture and the people. And that's so I didn't really have any expectations, but it was more of just something that I wanted to really embrace that kind of once in a lifetime experience and not kind of waste anything at all. I was kind of, I went out there thinking I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to do as much as I can.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of Southeast Asian countries have different cultural stuff and things. Was
Mm.
that the same for you?
Yeah, well, I think I definitely knew that the culture was going to be very different. I knew the cuisine was obviously going to be very different. I was really excited to kind of experience that diversity, and just really kind of see firsthand, the different cultures.
Yeah, but how did this trip change your understanding of Southeast Asia then?
Oh, so much. I mean, first of all, just getting to visit 6 nations and see how different they were. I think, obviously, being a geography teacher, I do have an understanding, but a lot of my understanding just come from what I've read and things like that, and what I've done in my qualifications and in my degree. But actually, when you're out there living in those countries and you're seeing things firsthand, I particularly found it quite difficult, with the levels of poverty you have, particularly in some of the rural areas, and kind of, when you hear about it or you talk about, oh, poverty in these countries, but then when you see it firsthand and you see children that don't necessarily have, very good qualities of life, you see families where you're looking in someone's house, they haven't even got a window, and you just look in and there's like a roll mat on the floor. It kind of really hits you quite hard and gives you that big kind of reality check, really.
Yeah, because isn't Southeast Asia a low income country, right?
So it's a continent which is
Yeah.
made up of a range of, different countries. The majority of the, countries I went travelling in were classed as newly emerging economies. So they're not the poorest nations, but they have definitely developed. But one thing I would say is that across all of the countries that I visited, there was this huge wealth divide. So you had some areas where there was a lot of wealth. So when I was in Bangkok in Thailand, there were areas I went to that were very wealthy, but then there are other areas, even in Bangkok itself, where you saw, significant levels of poverty. And then when you went to other areas, like some of the islands where there was less infrastructure. So, for example, when I went to Koh Phi Phi in the south of Thailand, it was a tiny, tiny island where you could walk from one side of the island to the other side within about 5 minutes. And there was very little kind of road infrastructure at all. There was a few paved paths, but most of it was just dirt tracks. So to kind of, yeah, there was definitely, I would say, definitely huge, divide in terms of the development, depending on where you were in the country.
Oh, that's But looking back, what was one key thing you would tell people who want to travel solo or with partners?
I would literally say just go for it. Don't hold back. I think for me, going traveling was quite a big step out of my comfort zone. I'm someone who quite likes to be within my comfort zone, have a plan, know what's going on. And ultimately, traveling was the complete opposite of that. Like sometimes, in a few days' time, I didn't know exactly where I was going to be. It was very much kind of traveling and kind of living life off on a limb, really. But I think I definitely grew as a person, and I think it definitely gave me a very different perspective. So I think you have the opportunity, don't give it a second thought, just go for it.
Yeah, that's a great answer to the people who want to travel solo or anything else. Hello and welcome to episode 2, Touring on a Budget. Welcome to The Quiet Distance. I'm joined by my geography teacher, Mrs. Want, and we're going to discuss about her travels to Southeast Asia. So, how did you budget for this trip then?
So saving up for a while, knowing that it was going to cost quite a bit of money. We kind of went out with quite a bit of money there. So to be honest with you, I didn't feel like I had to budget too much. One thing that my husband did do though, and this is very kind of him being very logical, he had like a tracker on his phone where every time we kind of went out and bought food, for like hotels, for accommodation, for transport, he would kind of log like how much we could see, how much we were spending every day, what we were spending overall on transport, on food, so we could start kind of, as we were out there for a few weeks, we were starting to see the areas where we were spending the most money. I think one thing that was a huge benefit to us in terms of financially was when we went out there, we went just after the COVID pandemic. So everything had just opened up again in July 2022, and as a result things were quite a bit cheaper. I think a lot cheaper than what they are now if you were to go traveling in 2026. But I think just having an idea, just keeping a log of what you're spending your money on. Sometimes you might want to think about prioritizing, okay, do you want to go and eat out and have a nice meal, or there are ways where you can cut costs. So for example, one of the things we really liked to do was to go and buy like street food. We felt that it was a more authentic experience. Actually many times food actually tasted nicer, but actually it was also cheaper, so we tend to save a lot of money on eating out just by kind of eating street food and things like that.
What street food do you remember eating then?
Street food, do you know what, Thai food for me is, I love Thai food. Pad Thai off the street was incredible. Sometimes you just kind of rock up, or we had like a little kind of moped, we just rock up to a little kind of shack on the side of the road, and like they'd like kind of do like a quick like kind of green Thai curry, or you can get these like chicken skewers and things like that. And yeah, just the most delicious food that you kind of take with you. Sometimes they had like kind of chairs and tables on the side of the road that you could just kind of rock up to and just kind of sit and enjoy a meal.
That sounds really nice.
It was good, and also kind of felt like it was a little bit more realistic and authentic about kind of that culture experience. I think we did go out to like a few restaurants and things, but we almost felt like that wasn't the real kind of cultural experience, and we wanted to kind of really sample as much authentic cuisine as possible and just kind of really embrace that.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. What was the weirdest street food?
The weirdest thing, I think there was one, we were in a Thai market. I didn't actually try it, but there was this type of insect that they would put into a bag, and then I did see a Thai person and they just opened the bag and they were just eating the insect live.
Oh god.
And that was, I couldn't, as much as I kind of wanted to try it, I just didn't overcome the hurdle of actually trying it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what they were called. But yeah, and there was a few insects that I nearly tried, it was a scorpion, but the idea of it, I just couldn't get it into my head. I do regret not doing that though.
Yeah, that just sounds like I know it's like a cultural thing, but it's not weird. It's just like what people do eat.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, like in Southeast Asia.
Absolutely. I think it's when you're out there, that's all that people know, and that's a cult thing that they eat. And I'm sure if they came over here to the UK, things that we eat, they'd probably find pretty odd well.
So how does budgeting influence travel decisions, do you think?
I think definitely in terms of what you're doing day to day. I think sometimes the travel options is a big one when you're actually moving from place to place, which on average across our 3-month travel experience, we were moving every 2-3 days. Now, there are lots of different options. Sometimes you could fly between places, sometimes you can get a train, sometimes you get a boat or a taxi. And I think sometimes, depending on your budget and what you've got, there are definitely cheaper options available, which might be a little bit slower travel and time-wise. But also there are more expensive options available that are probably more efficient and quicker route as well. So I think having a higher budget just definitely gives you that more flexibility and freedom about those choices as well.
What was the most transport you used like during your travels?
We used so many because I guess it depended. When we were moving between countries, flying was generally the option. There was a couple of times where we went from Vietnam and then we travelled via bus in Cambodia. But then a few times we did fly. Day to day though, when we were just looking at just going out and about places, we'd very commonly use a bike. We'd rent a bike. That was really common because my husband Dan has a motorbike license that he could ride, and I just with that. Or we'd get things like the books, which were pretty cheap as well.
Yeah, well, at least you had the money to travel and
Yeah.
like fly. How much did you spend overall on the trip?
Overall, it cost us about £6,000, which seems like a lot, but when you think about that was for 3 months, and that included everything. So that included we learned how to scuba dive out in Thailand. So that included all hotel, all flights, there and back, everything included. And I think sometimes I look back at like sometimes my 2-week holidays that I spend money on, and sometimes I'm spending not £6,000, but I'm definitely spending around £1,000 for a week on holiday. So I think at the time that was, like I said, it was post-pandemic. It was a lot cheaper. I think if you were to do it now, you'd definitely be looking at another 2-3 grand on top of that.
Yeah, because since inflation and stuff, like it's gotten so much expensive.
Absolutely.
Like I feel like in like markets, like stores, I feel like shops have just gone really expensive now.
Absolutely. I mean, so like for a hotel accommodation, we worked out that we on average spent £15 a night on hotel, and it definitely wasn't luxury. There were a couple of times in certain places we chose to kind of sat out and enjoy like a luxury accommodation, but I would say it was clean accommodation. It's probably your typical kind of 3-star accommodation, but I know for a fact now that those rooms that were going for that rate would be probably 25 quid at least. So I think it's definitely, with the rising costs, I think we felt it in the UK, but I think globally around the world there's definitely been an increase in costs of travel and so on.
What would one key thing would you do, like if you travelled next time?
What, as in go to a place, or
yeah, like go around travelling again?
Do you know what I do wish that we would have perhaps extended the trip if we could. I mean, in reality we couldn't, but I would have loved to have gone down to Australia and New Zealand. I think I would have loved to in Indonesia. We were in Indonesia for about 3.5 weeks, and we did a few of the islands. So we did Bali, we did Nusa Penida, we did Lombok. There's an island called Komodo Island, which has got Komodo dragons on it, and that's a really popular one. We just didn't have time to do that island, and I do regret not doing that, because now they've brought in like a tax now for tourists. If you want to go to that island, you have to pay this fee. I think it's about £150 if you want to go now.
Oh, that's expensive.
So I do kind of regret not doing that, but I do try and live life without having too many regrets. And I try and think about all the positives and everything that all the opportunities I did have. But if I was able to have extended the trip for 6 months, I would have loved to have done Australia, New Zealand as well.
Yeah. Welcome to episode 3 of Travelling with a Partner. Welcome to the Quiet Distance. I'm joined by my geography teacher, Mrs. Want. We're here to talk about her travels around Southeast Asia. So what was the first thing you did before you went travelling?
What, in terms of preparation for it?
Like what did you do before you travelled around Southeast Asia?
So we definitely had a plan. We spent a long time looking at places and having a rough idea of where we wanted to go within each country, how things we wanted to see in each of those places. So we almost did like a little bit of a flow diagram of roughly how long we think we'd be in each place, all the different attractions, all the different things we wanted to see, different activities we could be doing there, and then kind of planned our route around Southeast Asia. That took a lot of planning. The other thing we did was thinking about our packing and how we were actually going to travel. So we both got this rucksack from Osprey, which was only a 40-litre rucksack. It wasn't very big, and that's the only thing we took with us. And we both had one each. And then thinking about how can we try and travel as light and efficiently as possible. What clothes will we need to be taking, what things we need, what things can we eventually get out there that might save us with weight and things on the plane. So those are the things that we focus on whilst preparing traveling.
How heavy did your bag ended up getting?
So it was about, when we left the UK, it was about 7 to 8 kilograms, which isn't a lot at all. I kind of look back at pictures now and see this rucksack, which really isn't very big. In some of my pictures, I think, how on earth did I manage to travel on that with such a limited weight? Because, you know, like when you go, when you have a suitcase, you normally check it into hold of the aeroplane. We didn't. All of our we just kept with us at all times because we just travelled so light.
Did you have to get like any vaccinations before traveling?
Yeah, so we got a couple. There were a few that we got on the NHS. We basically just went by our travel nurse what vaccines they said for different countries. We did also pay to get another vaccine because we thought we were going to be going to this area, which I can't remember what the name of the vaccine was. But this area we were going to, our plans actually changed. We didn't actually go to that area, so we didn't really need the vaccine in the end. But there are a few things, recommendations of vaccines that you should have if you're going to kind of go out to Southeast Asia.
How did you first react when, like, you and your husband started planning about traveling around Southeast Asia? How did he react about this whole thing?
We were so excited. I think to begin with, when we kind of agreed that we wanted to do it, and I was going to go and speak to the head teachers about it at work. You know, we didn't really know what the outcome was going to be, but I thought, you know, you've got to ask the question, otherwise I'm never going to know. And then actually, when they agreed to it, it was a bit like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And we were both really, really excited. We were a little bit nervous because we'd never been to Asia at all. We didn't really know what to expect. We'd watched a lot of kind of, we've read a lot of blogs and watched a lot of kind of YouTube clips about people's experiences. But yeah, we were just really, really buzzing and really excited for the experience overall.
Yeah, because I feel like personally, I would like, if I'm preparing for like a journey, I would rather like search up like stuff on TikTok, YouTube, look on blog like sites, look on Twitter for some like stuff and like to get prepared and all that.
Yeah, we definitely did. We've definitely followed and watched a lot of kind of blogs and so on about kind of people's experiences and tips. You know, even like we watched this blog that gave us lots of tips about, you know, SIM cards and like your phone and thing where you can get them really cheaply and things like that. Things that, you know, so we watched so many clips, which was kind of making us more and more excited, but also trying to help us just keep quite a level head about, you know, this is quite a big thing. We need to make sure we're really organised and we've got everything prepared, ready for the experience.
What was the one thing you reflected after traveling for so long?
I think it was the perspective that it gave me in life. I came back very much looking at life differently. So I think one of the things that, you know, seeing children living in poverty and how little people had, but at the same time, how happy people were, I came back thinking, you know, I need to appreciate everything I've got that little bit more, because there are so many people out there that have so much less than I do, but they're still so grateful for everything they have in life. And I think, you know, that it gave me that perspective and really made me think out how lucky I am.
Yeah, because I feel like some people's like lives can be really like not horrible but like bad. Like some people do live in poverty and just some parents don't have the job opportunities like in the country to like get money. Like
Absolutely.
sometimes people can get like what £50 like a week and they'll try and budget that to the kids and food.
Absolutely.
And like supplies.
And one thing I would say was one of the things I loved about my travels is just how friendly people were, how happy people were, and just even though you would see people that were like trying to sell things on a market stall, and you'd see they'd be working all day, all night, trying to make ends meet and make money, you'd still walk past them and they'd still have a smile on their face. And that was just so refreshing, because I think sometimes when we're in the UK, you know, sometimes we can all be quite negative at times. You can get stuck in that rut and think, oh, my life is rubbish. But, you know, it definitely made me kind of rethink that a lot.
How do you think like it affected you overall?
I think it made me a better person. I think it gave like I said, it gave me that sense of perspective, but I think it also really gave me this kind of drive to want to travel more and see places, and just to kind of get out there that little bit more, and, you know, really embrace every travel opportunity that I've got, particularly, you know, with me being the age that I am, you know, whilst I don't have children, so, you know, try and make every opportunity to travel wherever I can.
Hello, and welcome to the final episode of Inflation on Ticket. Welcome to The Quiet Distance. I'm joined by my geography teacher, Mrs. Wand. We're here to talk about her travels around Southeast Asia. So, how do you feel about the travel price rise, like now versus like before?
I mean, I guess I can only go off kind of what I experienced at the time in 2022, and then obviously what I've kind of read about. And I've had actually my parents go out to Thailand now every year since I said how good it was, and they have said it has got more expensive. It's kind of, I'm quite mixed about it, because what I see is if things get more expensive, that might mean that people are getting higher wages out there. That might mean that, you know, local people are they're making more money. But obviously, with things getting more expensive, in a selfish way for travellers, that does make it a little bit harder. But I think that's just life. I think things are going to increase in cost, and I think particularly as a place like many of those Southeast Asian countries continue to develop, they will get that little bit more expensive.
Yeah, because I feel like the travel prices have really raised since, like, I feel like over time the prices have just increased to the point like it's over like £1,000 to get somewhere. For example, like the US, it's like over £1,000 just to get there.
Yeah, and I think definitely for people wanting to travel, and that's probably more likely to be younger people. To try and save up is obviously, if you've got to try and save up more money, that adds that extra barrier to people being able to do it. Like I said, at the time when I went, things were cheaper, and I'm definitely like, oh gosh, if I was to go traveling now and have that 3 months, I'd have to have saved up a significantly higher portion of money.
What was the reality of like the flight prices and transport? Like, how much did you spend overall?
Oh gosh, don't know off the top of my head, but on flights, so for our flight there to Thailand and then back from Singapore, so our big flight, that cost about £700, which at the time, that's pretty good. Anywhere when we went in, like taxis or tuk-tuks were particularly cheap, you'd be probably looking at £1 or £2 for a tuk-tuk ride. One of the main forms of transport that we did use was kind of getting like a motorbike or a moped. I mean, we would hire those out for, I think it worked out at about £4 or £5 a day, which really is nothing when you've got complete use of it. You can go wherever you want. I mean, that was between two of us as well, so splitting that cost. So yeah, I think at the time, actually, travelling around within the places was relatively effective, but I think now it's definitely gone up.
Did you and your husband like split the money on times and stuff? Like, most of the times, did you used to like split the money on food, transport?
Yeah. So we just split everything. We basically just went out there with like a pot, and we just with a pot of money, and we just used it. And we just kind of kept monitoring what we were using. Obviously, when you're out there, we had to make sure we had like bank cards that we could use out there, so we didn't kind of get too many fees when we were withdrawing money and things like that. So we generally used Monzo as a banking app, and we also used Revolut as well, because they were like the ones that had the lowest fees. But yeah, so everything we just kind of split, and we just kind of went with the flow to an extent.
Yeah, because I feel like splitting with a partner is much more easier, because like if your partner pays full price, it's kind of like you feel bad for them in a way of like, he just paid full price for a meal that I also ate. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, we're in the modern day. I think we just split everything equally. I think that is one of the benefits when you are traveling with a partner, is that things like accommodation, hotels, and so on, like a motorbike, because I can get on the back of it as well, it does make it more cost effective. Where if you were a solo traveller, you'd have to be paying for a room for just one person. So yeah.
How do you think like inflation has affected travel planning now?
I think it will hinder the ability for people to do it, or it will take longer, and it will be a bit more of a leap of faith for some people to do it. And I think it might have an impact, particularly on lower income households. And I think that's a real shame, because I think having an opportunity to travel, I think it should be an opportunity for everyone. It isn't. I think it's very much a privilege that people can have, those who can afford to do it. And I think it will definitely mean that there will be definite communities or people of low incomes that aren't going to be able to afford to do it.
Yeah, because I feel like traveling is such a good opportunity for like young travelers or people who really want to travel. But like sometimes people can't save money, because a lot of people of the time, they just love spending money on stuff. And like a lot of people always say, don't spend money, just save them.
Yeah, I mean, quite a lot of the time now, me and my husband are like, we would much prefer to try and spend money on, I guess, experiences and travel, as opposed to kind of things like items and branded things and like that. I think that's one of the things that my perspective changed when I came back. I was like, I don't want to spend money on a new pair of jeans. I actually want to spend money or put that towards an experience or something, or put that towards like a travel opportunity.
Yeah, what do you think the difference is between domestic versus international flights wise?
Well, international definitely way more. I think actually when we were out in Southeast Asia, you could get flights actually domestically. So Thailand, for instance, we flew from a Thai island called Koh Samui, and we flew to Bangkok, and that flight cost us £25. Well, it spent less than that, £20, which I thought was pretty good. But then obviously huge international flights, because you're flying longer. Our flight to get from the UK to Phuket, which was our first kind of stop on our travel, that was hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, because I feel like more like longer flights are much more expensive
Yeah.
because planes obviously, like, you know, waste more fuel,
Yeah.
have to fly more.
And it's the time, it's
Yeah.
paying for, like, you know, flight attendants time, it's everything. So yeah, the long haul flights are going to cost a lot more.
Yeah, but I feel like short flights are much more cheaper than long flights.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah. So like, would you travel again with these prices?
I would try to. So I mean, we did do a little bit of a traveling holiday. So when we got married last year, we did a honeymoon and we went to Malaysia. So we kind of did a little bit of traveling again because we did Kuala Lumpur. We then did another kind of town called Georgetown. We then flew across to Borneo and we did a lot of like kind of tropical rainforest track. So we were moving around. We moved around 4 locations within our 3-week honeymoon. So we kind of tried to grasp a little bit of traveling back again. And you know, I don't think I'd be able to within my career now have another career break and be able to go travel for 6 months. And I'd love to. And I think, you know, if I'd be willing to save up and do it, but it's just kind of balance that work as well.
Yeah, because I feel like work and travel is like a lot to balance within yourself, and like it would affect you mentally and physically probably because like when you come back you have so much work to do that you're just overwhelmed and overstressed.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of travellers though that increasingly that are working and travelling at the same time. I know when we were out there was a lot of like remote workers that were like in cafes and so on doing like work and travelling at the same time. We met a few people who said that they were kind of doing a little bit of work. I was like, wow, how have you planned this? How have you got your company to agree to this? But they were doing a little bit of travelling, they were doing some working. And I think, you know, that opportunity could increase with more remote working. I think that could help maybe support travelling a little bit more.
Yeah, that sounds right. Right, thank you so much for being in my podcast.
My absolute
pleasure. It was such a delight to talk about your travels around Southeast Asia.
Thank you.